You might be the funniest guy that all your friends know, the most confident guy that all your friends know, the most interesting guy that everyone knows, but you don't even know it. You know why? Because you're shy. And I used to be like that. I'm gonna be honest. I used to be like that, and I speak on my past experiences so that you can learn from them. I used to be a shy, timid kid, okay, and I was a boring personality, and that's why I didn't really have enough conversation to engage in with other people. Now I can, even if you ask my friends, like, and I don't mean this in an egotistical way or anything, but they like having me around. They say, yo, if Rahim, if you were there, would have been so fun. And every time I meet them, I never fail to make them laugh, okay? And you might say, oh, I'm not charismatic for that, this and that. You might be the most charismatic guy in the room, but you don't even know it because you don't speak or you're not confident enough. And in order to know, you must be confident, okay? And I always look back at why I wasn't confident and why I was a shy, timid kid, and it was because I was out of shape, compared to my friends and my cousins. I was out of shape, and I really had nothing to be confident about. If you have something to be confident about, then it's really not an issue. Like, if you're out of shape, obviously you're not going to be confident. You carry yourself like a bitch. How are you going to be confident? And that used to be me. But once I got confident and I started being myself, people liked being around me. People found me funny. Like, I always think about how the last interaction I had with my friends, or the last time we went out, how many times I made them laugh. And I would also think, like, a couple years ago, I wasn't like this. A couple years ago, I wasn't really the you know, I guess you can say center of attention, even though, like, now, like, I'm not, like, I don't really aim to be that. It's just that, making yourself present. Like, there's a lot of guys in the friends group where, like, if you don't show up, like, a lot of people wouldn't care. Like, I want you to think about this right now. You as a man right now and your friends, if you guys go out, okay, and you cancel last minute, would they really care? Would they really cancel the whole plan just because you didn't come? Or would they be like, whatever, okay, you know what, we'll just go? And that's how you know how interesting of a person you are and how much, they like you being around. And something that really boosted my confidence was obviously getting in shape, okay? Getting in shape, um, but also faking confidence. I would do door-to-door sales, okay? And this is when I really started becoming confident, is when I was in shape and when I was doing door-to-door sales. Because I was so used to rejection, so used to rude people, so used to the worst possibility that can happen if you're talking to a human, because you are knocking at their door, okay? You're knocking at their door as a stranger with their whole family in their house, okay? Maybe bothering them after, mid dinner, and you're trying to sell them something. So, you really get used to rejection, and it becomes a piece of cake. And that's what I really recommend to a lot of guys out there sales. But obviously, you guys, like, there's a lot of weak guys out there. They don't want to do, like, sure, they might want to do sales with a maybe base pay or even a commission base, but door to door is something like where people, a lot of people chicken out, But whoever does door to door sales, I really respect them, because you're constantly, a lot of the times, facing rejection, and you're at the person's doorstep. So they have every right to yell in your face. And once you deal with the worst, possibility of you talking to a human, and it's you selling them a product or service, I'm not scared if I make a joke at the table and nobody laughs. Why would I be? Right? I'm not scared if, you know, uh, like any altercation happens at a table, or any awkward moment, because I had thousands of them. What is one more, right? So you got to put yourself in uncomfortable situations, whether it's networking, whether it's approaching somebody and trying to get to know them, whatever it is. If you put yourself in uncomfortable situations, then you're just going to get used to it. You're going to get immune to it. And I want you to think to yourself, right, even if nobody laughs at your joke at the table, right, how long are people going to remember that for? 10 minutes, an hour, a day, max 2 days, and then they forget about it. They don't remember. Oh yeah, nobody laughed at your joke. You often don't hear people bring that up because they already forgot about it. So what are you really scared of? You're literally so close to becoming a very charismatic, confident man. Okay, because a lot of people, they know how to dress. Okay, they look good, they're in shape, but they have the personality of a little girl. They can't speak. They have a little shallow voice. Very very shallow voice, and they're not confident. Usually they're sat with their legs crossed, shoulders in, talking very quietly. One thing that I would do is like, and it would feel awkward, is, what? If I'm sitting in front of a table or with anybody or whoever it is, even if it's with family, bro, I would literally sit like this. See how my legs are spread out? I would man spread, okay? And growing up, I would also hear from my family, don't sit with your legs that out. And I was like, why not? Like, it's not a bad thing. This is how men are supposed to sit, okay? God designed your balls to not be suffocated and me to sit like this or closed in. They're not supposed to be too warm, okay, because that also kills your sperm count and your testosterone. So I would sit like this because, and then what I realized is, when you sit in a confident way, nobody really cares. Like, none of my family members said that anymore, because they seen like I don't really like care. Obviously as a kid, when I would sit like that, it was like, don't sit like that, close your legs. But if you're a man spread, maybe sit back, depending on the setting, slow down when you speak, and have some bass to your voice, okay? You don't automatically have to have a deep voice, okay? The slower you speak and the deeper you breathe, you're gonna notice, wow, there's my masculinity. There's the bass to my voice. There's a calmness in when I speak, and I don't shake, and I don't have a squeaky, pitchy voice, because you often sound like this and talking fast. Oh, I went there and me and my friends had ice cream. And then nobody respects you. Like, sit back, relax, man spread, and then slowly breathe and get your point across, okay? And people won't speak over you, and people will have much more respect for you. And that's something that I realized over the years. But yeah, I feel like I covered all the points in this video, but that's the guide, to being more charismatic and confident, because you might have charisma but you don't know it. And this is like 50%. If you follow these things, this is 50% of your charisma. The rest comes from your personality and how you are as a person, what you think, your morals, your values. But this 50% is pretty huge, because there's a lot of people who you don't agree with. There might be like debaters, Nick Fuentes, for example. He's a very controversial influencer when it comes to politics, but he presents himself in a pretty articulate way, and not in a cowardly way, where every point he says it with conviction, and he says what he means, and it's respectable. But this is 50%. I would actually say this is 70% of what of how you carry yourself. But do what you wish with this information, And until next time, take care.